I've been taking mid-shifts a lot more with my friend Jacob. Some of you will remember Jacob from the story about the maybe skinwalker. He's a pretty good guy, been here for a long time, and boy, does he have some stories. I told him about the moths and the train, and he told me some things too. He told me about hikers missing beers and how someone had seen a set of stairs in the woods, so I guess it happens here too. We spent a lot of time sitting in carts and checking campsites for thieving raccoons or hungry bears, and that leaves a lot of time to talk. There was one story that he wouldn't share, however. It was something that had happened a long time ago, something to do with a group of scouts. It had been bad, whatever it was, but Jacob wouldn't say much more than that. I poked a few times, curious about the whole troop of scouts, and how they could have been hunted or hurt or killed without anyone having heard about it. But he kept saying he didn't want to talk about it yet. One night, though, we got a call about an animal attack near the east side of the park. I had just come in from the toilet, wiping my hands on my shorts since the dispenser was out of towels, and found him holding the phone and shaking a little. "Are they alive?" he asked, staring at the wall as whoever was on the phone talked pretty loud. Uh-huh. We'll drag them into the bathroom and bar the door. Clean them up. I'll have park services en route to your location as soon as possible. Don't open the door unless somebody tells you they're with park services, okay? Sit tight. Try to stop the bleeding. We'll be en route. He hung up the phone and went to the cabinet with the rifles in it. "Saddle up, kid," he said, tossing me a shotgun, which I caught as smoothly as I could. "We've got an emergency." He was stuffing rifle rounds into his pocket, and as I swung the shotgun over my shoulder, he tossed me a box of shells, too. "What's the trouble, Jay?" "Couple of hikers have been attacked by an animal," he said, slapping a shell into the rifle and putting more into his pocket. "A dog, they said, but..." He opened his mouth as if he meant to say more, but closed it again and slung the rifle over his shoulder. "Come on, I don't want to be out there alone if it's what I think it is." I followed behind him, the shells in my pocket smacking into my thigh lightly. What is it?" He growled as he started to climb into the Jeep, but checked his frustration. "Get in. I'll fill you in on what we might be walking into." I climbed in, checking that the safety was on my shotgun before I laid it across my lap, and we were off. Jay had leaned the rifle between the seats, and I saw him reach into his pocket and pull out a crumpled pack of Marlboros. He fished one out and then offered it to me. I shook my head, and he put it in his own mouth and lit it, taking a drag before rolling the window down. If they knew we were smoking in the work truck, the higher-ups would have had a cow, but it looked like Jacob needed it. "You remember what I told you happened at the Franklin Moore campground?" "Yeah," I said, wincing as we hit a bump that sent the gun sliding a little before I grabbed it. "You said something had killed a bunch of scouts." "Well, it wasn't the only thing like that happened around here. A lot of weird shit happens around here. You've probably figured that out. Sometimes people get killed because of it." "Well, we used to have a pretty nice campground on the west side, near LaGrange, called the Mineral Hills State Park. It was my first post, back before they made this whole McGhee State Park back in 2008. I was fresh back then, back on the job about 6 months when we got a call about a massacre. Mineral Hills was pretty peaceful, kind of place where you mostly gave directions and warned people about curious bears. The ranger I was working under told me, for 6 months he told me, how lucky I was to be in this position. "This is a great place to learn your job so you can get a cushy spot in a different park." Well, it was great, till it wasn't. He took a curve a little too fast, and I grabbed the handle over the door before my head could slam into the glass. "Easy, Jay," I hissed. "You're gonna give me a..." But he went right on like he hadn't heard me. I was coming in when Paul, the ranger in charge of my training, tossed a rifle at me and told me to come on. It was barely dawn, and I asked him what the hell could have happened this early in the morning. He told me I was about to find out, and boy, was he right. We got into the pickup they had given us to work from, and we pulled up outside the gates of hell. It was a massacre. 12 scouts and their scoutmaster were dead. We found about 5 scattered near the woods, also dead. We were at a total loss. Some of these kids had been laughing and playing in the spring just the day before, and it was my first time seeing something like that. The cops weren't far behind us, but the real surprise was when some kid came stumbling out of the woods. He was unharmed, so far as I could tell, but he was exhausted, and he was scared to death. We came past the sign that told us we were entering the west limits of the park, and Jay slowed down a little bit. He told us a story, one I wasn't sure I believed, but I couldn't argue with. He said he and his 2 friends had gone looking for some old building, something called the Orville site, and when one of the cops heard him, he asked if he was sure. He called someone while we questioned the kids, and he told us his friends were dead, and the thing that had killed them was loose. We put him in a police car so that they could get him to the hospital, and that was when the helicopter landed. The helicopter? I asked. Not sure I believed him, and Jay nodded. Yup, one of those big green whirlybirds. Bunch of guys in military fatigues. The officer told them what the kid had said, and they came to Paul and I and asked if we could help look for the animal that had done this. You 2 know the park, and I'm hoping you can help us find these things before they do it again. That should have been a red flag, but it wasn't. I was too young, too new, and Paul agreed to go with them, so did I. We set off, heading into the woods, as the 6 of them followed behind. They wanted to see the Orville site first, and as we came down the old road and found the installation, I wondered how I'd never seen it before. It wasn't huge, about the size of a warehouse, but it should have been important enough to come check on every now and again. Paul looked away when I asked him about it and said it wasn't part of our job, so that had to be good enough. We found 2 more kids there. Both of them were ripped to pieces, and the man who had asked us to come along made a call before we headed out again. We stopped by the campground. This one was the miners' ground, and there was only one tent. The trail of blood wasn't hard to follow, and Jay knocked on the door before telling me to watch his back while he talked to the victims. I felt a little silly as I watched the woods with my loaded shotgun, but when I glanced back to see who he was talking to, it made me feel less so. There was a man and a woman, and the man looked like a buzzsaw had attacked his leg. I was pretty sure I could see bone amidst the shredded meat, and when Jay saw me peeking, he yelled at me to keep watch. I could hear them talking about a feral dog, a dog that might have mange or some kind of disease. They said it had been nosing around the cooler, and when the man had gone to scare it off, it had attacked. They had kicked it away and ran, and by the dent in the door, it had nearly been a body identification job. They said it had run off just before they called us, and tracks weren't too hard to follow. Jay told them to sit tight and wait on the paramedics, and the 2 of us headed off after the tracks. He sighed as we followed. This was actually pretty close to the place we found those things. Yeah? I asked. You think this might have something to do with that? Don't see how, Jay said, the rifle at the ready. We got 'em all, and they were a lot better at killing than whatever this was. I guess there's no way to tell, but I hope so. We walked on for a little while before he started telling it again. About half a mile from here is the spring. That's where we found them. They had gorged themselves, and all 6 of them were laid out with fat bellies and lolling tongues. They were the most terrible things I've ever seen. They were like starved dogs, even when full. Their skin was gray, and I was pretty sure I could see bones poking out in places. They were only a little larger than Dobermans, but the closer we got, the more bones I saw beneath their skin. It was like looking at a piece of extremely well-done Halloween decoration. and the man in charge put up a closed fist when we were 50 feet away. He counted down with his fingers, and then they all stood up in one fluid motion and opened fire. The dog things had all set up, preparing to run, but the bullets cut them to pieces. They'd been hauling those assault rifles all day, and it was good to see that they weren't just for show. Paul and I kept our heads down. Our rifles would have been wasted. And when I peeked up, I was shocked to see that they were still trying to move. The creatures were shredded. Some of them had limbs just laying nearby, or their heads lolling off, but they were still crawling and clawing to get closer to the soldiers. It was the strangest thing I'd ever seen. And as they shot dry, they all stopped to reload so they could shoot again. As they slapped magazines into weapons, I couldn't help but focus on the twitching pieces of the creatures as they tried to get at their killers. I remembered hearing about people on drugs who would take bullet after bullet before they went down. It was the age of the war on terror, after all. But this was something worse. I saw a clawed foot inching closer, a head bobbing along as its jaws snapped and its eyes leaked, and a tail that was more whipped than anything, that just kept wagging. They put another drum of bullets down the range, cutting them into chunks, and they shouldered their guns and got to work. They started lighting them up, collecting the bits and setting them on fire, and the pieces stopped twitching as they fell to ashes. We searched the grounds from dawn till dusk, and when the men called a halt and told us that we could go, I felt like I might drop. We heard something up ahead, and Jay put a hand out to stop me. We eased closer, slow walking so as not to make a lot of noise, and found something gray and furry nosing into a hole at the base of a tree. Jay sighed, relieved when he saw it, and as it spun around with its teeth bared and its fur up, Jay shot it in the face. It was a wild dog, and I wasn't positive, but I was pretty sure that it had rabies. "Thank God," Jay said. "I was really afraid it was one of those weird dog things." He pulled a black trash bag out of his pocket, and after checking it for movement, he shoved the dog into the bag and handed it to me. "I did the deed. You carry the body. EMTs will probably want that to test it for rabies or something. Come on, let's go." As we walked back, I noticed the dark clouds had left Jay. "So what happened the last time?" I asked. "Military closed the park for a while, and Paul and I were sent on a 2-week vacation. They got rid of the warehouse when we were gone, dropped the mountain on it or something, and we were told to pretend it had never existed. It was transferred here a year later, and until it became part of the park, I hadn't thought about that time outside of nightmares for years. We handed the dog off to the EMTs, and they took the guy to the hospital, where he thankfully did not have rabies. He did end up losing the leg, but he didn't die the slow and agonizing death that comes with rabies, so that was good. All in all, it wasn't a bad day, but it makes me a lot more mindful of the time I spend in the woods, and that sometimes my curiosity might need to be checked. Who knows what other secrets might be waiting out in the deeper parts of the forest.
Good evening, everyone. It's me, Dr. Plague. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's show. If you think you might like a little more spooky in your life, then please feel free to click on one of the videos we have up here. Maybe look at one of the playlists if you're trying to get caught up. I know, there's so many videos on the channel. There's so many series that are going at the same time. Sometimes you just need a little refresher course, and I gotta say, I always enjoy the views. If you're not subscribed, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Maybe hit the bell so you don't miss anything. We upload a lot on this channel, so you won't want to miss a single story as they come out. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click on the Amazon link down there. There's quite a few books in my Amazon account. You can have a look, and if you'd like a signed copy, get up with me through email, and I'll be happy to work something out with you. Also, there's links to my Patreon, and you can become a member on the channel if you'd like your spooky a little bit early. Patrons and members on the $5 tier get their videos 12 hours early. That's in the morning as opposed to in the evening. Patrons at the $10 level also get a signed copy of my book anytime I write one. Speaking of my patrons, you should see them appearing right now. Just wanted to take a minute to say how much I appreciate all of you. Patrons, subscribers, however you give to the channel. I really appreciate everything you do. And it truly touches me that you have chosen to support the channel in this way. Well, that's enough for now. Till next time, Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.